Hi, this is Jam and Chats. I'm here with Mark Lewis and Ben Williams. Mark is a bassist, multi-instrumentalist and producer, and Ben, a guitarist and songwriter. Hi guys, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So, for me, there's a big connection between spirituality and music. Whether it's songwriting or we're jamming or performing on stage, I feel like, for me personally, I almost feel like a vessel. I feel like I'm receiving the music rather than actually doing it myself. So I'd like to know firstly, like, what your spiritual beliefs are, if any, and if any, how do they connect you to music, and how are those connections formed for you?
Well, I think I've kind of, throughout different times in my life, I think I've delved into spirituality and spiritual practice, and I think basically a number of years ago when I think I went through like a bit of a hard time, I sort of found Buddhism as like it seemed to like provide me with some kind of solace, and I did a lot of reading around the subject, and like I found that it was helping, and it was like I was identifying so much with that as a spiritual practice, not necessarily as like a religious practice, but some of the teachings within that seemed to teach me lessons about things like attachment and like just like letting go of things, and like actually being present in your current situation and your current circumstances. But then I suppose there's like an unexpected effect of that. It sort of, I feel like it did start to feed into creativity and music, and there were principles, I guess, that I learned around that time that seemed to actually make my musical and creative practice more rich, and perhaps even when it came to things like sort of attraction and like drawing things in to yourself, like let's say opportunities or people or relationships or.
So almost like manifestation, almost, that idea of...
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because one of the branches of like Buddhism that I got interested in it's called Nirin Buddhism, and that was, I mean, I actually don't practice it anymore, but like around that time I used to go to like meetups in Manchester. There's like groups and stuff for people, and like part of that was like chanting together, so like the chant that you would say would be Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, sort of kind of thing, which means I dedicate myself to the law of cause and effect. You'd be chanting this, either solitary, or you would be, in a group at a meeting or something, and you're chanting that together, and it feels really powerful, and it feels like you're kind of you're thinking about what you want, whether it's in life, whether it's like what opportunities you like to have, or like people used to joke about, you could like imagine having a Ferrari if you wanted to. Like, I know it sounds like completely ridiculous, and it sounds very culty, which there is probably like a slight culty element to it, but I think one of the teachings is there's always going to be like proof after a while that if you chant for the things that you want, then you will eventually have proof, and something will come along. And weirdly, that I feel like that has kind of happened for different things. It might have been like, I want to have a studio, and then lo and behold, you have a studio, but it's not kind of like magic. It's just like you're thinking so intensely about the things that you want that you start maybe resonating on that kind of frequency, or you're very tuned in, and any opportunities that arrive, you're suddenly like, bam, that's for me, kind of thing. And things did come out of the woodwork, and then suddenly like somebody offered for me to go and share a studio with them and not pay any money. It was, it's kind of weird. Like I did actually help him with his own production in return for having like share on this studio, which I'm still in. So I don't know, I feel like I'm going slightly off topic, but that did definitely feed into creative practice, because I think it draws the opportunities that you need to make the music that you want to make, and having that studio, for instance, it did then attract in different opportunities and different records. For instance, working with Ben, we sort of made a connection at that time, and we've done quite a lot of recording together.
I think with the manifestation thing as well, like I really believe that the thing of, if you're thinking positively, and I think it's the thinking positively that gets you there as well, isn't it? Even from a point of view, if someone's like, oh, you can't believe, you believing in a Ferrari happening, that's bollocks, whatever. But even just thinking in that way, people are going to pick up on that positivity and be like, wow, yeah, okay, all that helps, doesn't it?
It does, and it might take you. It might take you years or decades, but eventually, you've probably set the wheels in motion in your mind that that's something that you wanted, and years later that opportunity might come up. You might get some kind of job that's like a windfall of money, and then there's a Ferrari that's come up. I don't know, but like.
But I can totally resonate with what you're saying, because it's happened with me as well. As soon as I start desiring something, you start getting closer to that desire, don't you? It does start to happen.
You definitely do.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think what Mark was saying about staying in the present moment is quite an important thing, especially in terms of like creativity. When you're kind of like trying to write a song or come up with an idea, it's very easy to start thinking about all the external factors, to start thinking about people's reactions or what's going to happen when you post it before you even like finish writing the first few lines of the song. Maybe you can find a way of like staying in the present moment and not thinking about all that and just sticking with the idea. It's quite a good thing to do. I think like things like meditation and all that sort of thing help. So yeah, I do a little bit of that. I'm not massively spiritual, I wouldn't say, but trying to stay in the present moment.
In terms of when you're on stage, and if you're jamming with someone, you kind of, or even performing, there's that, what I would call, well, I think loads of people call it, the getting into that flow state of where you're, because I've spoken to a few people about it now, and it's like, for me personally, it's always I kind of leave my body when I get in the flow state. I leave where I am, like if I'm on stage, and I go somewhere else, and I get that thing when I come back, and I'm like, oh God, I'm here, there's people in front of me. Have you experienced it that way, or is it more of like an internal kind of more of a focus thing?
No, I think 100% it's, that flow state thing. That's like a beautiful place to be. Even if, ignoring kind of like spiritual viewpoints on that, like, I've forgotten his name, he's a Hungarian guy who wrote like a book on flow. And there's even like a graph. It's like, it's like a fine balance between something that's like not too challenging, but also not boring, and I can't remember the other factors, but like you're in like an optimal zone where you're like riding a wave of like being on the edge of your abilities. It's not something that's also too easy and too boring for you.
It's like just challenging enough so you want to work on it.
Yeah. And that basically, the book is about happiness. So like he basically came to like this conclusion that happiness was being in that state of flow. So like, I suppose that is kind of quite spiritual in a way as well, isn't it? Even though it's probably based on scientific study, because you're not in the flow if you're doing something that's too like difficult. It's not enjoyable. Like if someone comes along and they're like, oh, this one's in 11/8, and then there's a bar of 13/8, and then like you're actually not enjoying that then, because you're like going, oh my God, unless you can completely just feel that and it's within your ability.
And you enjoy counting as well.
Too much thinking going on to get into that state,
But you can do it though. Like I did like a Turkish gig once where everything was in weird time like that. And I'm quite religious at writing charts for things, and eventually I just went, well, I'm not going to write this out actually, I'm just going to like feel what they feel and just go with it, and it worked pretty much.
That's
you know,
amazing.
just to sort of trying to ignore the theory and just like let yourself just fall into it and, you know, rely on the other people around you to sort of cushion your landing.
I guess it's the practice and all the stuff you do when you're not on stage. It enables you to get into that state of just being in the flow. It's nice when that happens. It's you kind of just lose yourself and you're playing and you don't really think about, and you sometimes you just come back and you know, oh, I'm here. But it's not always easy to get into that state because all these different factors going on when you're playing, like the sound's not quite right or something's distracting you. But when it does happen, it's great.
And how would you describe it? What is it for you, would you say?
Music takes you to a place where nothing else sort of takes you to, like the effect it has on humans, like heart and soul and stuff like that. It's not easy to get from anything else. So I don't know how I'd describe it. Some kind of magic.
Yeah. I think it's interesting as well because you mentioned chanting as well, and I think like music's one of the only mediums where you can have hundreds of thousands of people chanting the same thing. You know, if you see someone, you know, singing Taylor Swift or something in the crowd, they're all doing it. What other medium does that? You know, what other medium creates that energy that everyone is saying the same thing,
bringing people together?
It's
when I watch things like that on like a massive gig or on TV at Glastonbury, kind of makes me swell up a bit.
It does, yeah.
Like, why is that happening to me? It's weird, but it's just the human connectivity, I guess.
Yeah. It sort of made, when you said that though, it made me think of football and like how that happens there.
Yeah, that's true.
And I'm just like, you know, I don't watch any football, not even the Euros sort of thing, but like, I think probably part of the draw of why people want to go and watch it is because they feel this oneness and this togetherness, at least within their own team of fans of their team, but like that feeling of probably like singing together and stuff, although they're not thinking of that as being like a spiritual experience, it probably is really, you know, underneath, but it's not wrapped up in that way. It's wrapped up in a different way.
I guess it's almost like tribalism, isn't it? Like with sports, it's more like there's like a almost battle to it, isn't there? It's like, my team's going to win and yours going to lose.
Like Queen got quite a few tunes that kind of quite sports based, like We Are the Champions, or kind of cross over those, so it kind of joins the two things.
I feel like that's maybe the separation of music, because music's more of a union, isn't it? Like everyone's there, like
people aren't competing. There's not two teams.
There's no competition there.
But I guess that one thing I would say though is that within spiritualism and religion over time, it's often been an us and them kind of scenario, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And wars have been fought over it, even though it's been from devoutly religious kind of people, you know. I suppose that's where the line between spiritualism and religion is, you know, drawn, maybe.
Yeah. That's a good point actually. I suppose I guess it's always been, I mean, in fact even probably the original forms of music were probably to rile up the army or the whatever the fighting force is to go to war, isn't it? You know, I guess that's why they always had the marching bands with them, or even pre that you'd have tribes with, you know, it was always the war songs and all that.
The power of it to sort of access your, I don't know, the subconscious or the emotions and the hormones and the lizard brain or whatever.
Yeah. Because I see music as almost like a gateway to another world, almost, because that's just the way I've experienced it in the past. Like there was one time it was the first time I'd realised that when I was like jamming, and I'd realised it wasn't me doing it. When I was like under the influence of shrooms, basically, I had some shrooms and I was playing kit, and I'm not good on kit in the grand scheme of things, but I was doing all this crazy stuff, and it wasn't because I was high, because it was all being filmed as well, and like. And I was playing, and I was like, I just suddenly became aware that this isn't me doing this. Like I'm enjoying it, and I was such in a flow state. But I realized that this is coming from somewhere else, and so many people, you know, that I look up to, or so many like famous people always say that, don't they? It's like, it's not me doing this. This is something else.
Like some kind of vessel, and the idea comes through them or to them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always wonder about that. It's like, are you like opening up your mind to get into that receptive state, and it is coming from somewhere in your mind and not somewhere else, but you're just making yourself extra receptive to it, and that you're sitting down and you're kind of like, I'm going to write a song, and then an idea comes out of nowhere. But yeah, it's weird. Sometimes ideas come like when my mind's occupied doing other things, like I'll be doing the washing up or driving, or like, so I'm not, and then an idea will just come in while my mind's kind of distracted with another thing, and that always happens. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't work out where they come from. But sometimes you write a song and it's fully formed almost. It's just like you write a song and almost the time it takes just to play a song, and you're like, wow, what happened there? But other times it's a massive struggle. But maybe it's just putting yourself in the state to get the ideas quite regularly. So sometimes it goes easier than others.
When you generally like write, do you get the lyrics first, or is it like melody, or is it just the tune itself?
All sorts of ways. I suppose the most common way, I just sit down on the piano or guitar, come up with an idea and sing over the top, and gradually try and like turn what I'm singing into words. I've got a silly song called Bodybuilding, which I wrote when I was just driving along and just singing to myself, I'm going to keep on bodybuilding. And it's like, that could be a song. But, yeah, all sorts of things. Like you can put Radio 3 on and then sing over the top of classical music, and then come up with a melody like that, and then keep the melody, turn the radio off, and find your own chords underneath.
And I suppose you both work with frequencies. I'd say, from a producer level, finding that frequency, and you from a note point of view, finding a note on guitar, or even with your voice. Either of you found like a note or a frequency, like a singular note or frequency that makes you feel a certain way, would you say?
How does D flat make you feel?
I don't like D flat that much, actually. It's a pain on the double bass, actually, D flat, I find.
Right.
But
is it fret 4?
Well, there's no frets.
Yeah.
But,
that space.
Sorry.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, on the A string. But notes that are particularly satisfying. I mean, you can't really be like a low E on a bass, can you? Really, there must be something about that.
E on a guitar is pretty good. Chord of E. Bang. Yeah. I guess there's different things sound good on different instruments, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, a good G chord on like a nice acoustic guitar.
Yeah,
that's lovely.
That's great.
But I don't know if I'm attached to any sort of like note in particular, but then it's the relationships, isn't it, between? I know this aren't like, it's just very fundamental, but like what we hear is like we're hearing like ratios of like notes. If you know what I mean, if you play one note, which is the tonic or whatever, if you play another one, you're hearing the sort of ratio between those two frequencies, kind of thing, and how they're interacting with each other, and that whether it's pleasing or not, or whether it's like sad or it's got an element of tension, like beating horribly together or something.
Yeah.
But then the beauty of that is they're sort of like beating horribly together, and then you play something else that resolves it, and then maybe even your body would sort of go, I mean, yeah, that's nice, thankfully.
Yeah.
A major third, thank you.
It's easier to get emotion out of two notes or more than it is just one note on its own, I think, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
We were doing a thing in the studio once where we just played a chord, and he was like, what's the first song that reminds you of? Do you remember that? So like, play an E chord, and then that was Park Life. Just instant association that chords have with songs that just stick with your mind. But
I think that's how then you end up like building new songs. Is you're basing that on all of your past experience of all the music you've ever heard and all the songs that you've heard, and the feeling that gave you, kind of thing. Yeah. And you'll play that E chord, and then it'll automatically want you to lead something else, and that you might have sort of lifted that from another song, but then you can do what you want, can't you? Really?
Yeah, I guess it helps develop your ears as well. If you have those associations, you go, oh, that's E.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is probably the craziest experience that you've had with music?
Craziest.
Yeah. Or even, like it just almost like mind-blowing moment where it was just like how, almost like an impossibility.
I think I know what mine is, but
Okay, go on.
use some time to think. But I did this thing years ago. I don't know if you maybe knew about it somehow, but we went to like Giant Wafer with like we did this project called Noah's Ark.
Oh yeah.
And like we took like 2 of each instrumentalist to this studio in the middle of Wales, and then basically like jammed for like 4 or 5 days. I say I was kind of like largely behind the, speakers sort of thing, but there was some just like amazing experiences that, I don't know, I felt like had like a lasting effect on me for ever since, really, where there would just be these crazy moments in these jams that would, they'd be going on for like half an hour or something, and like suddenly like things would suddenly just change, and like you might get like 2 or 3 musicians just all doing that change all at once without like talking or like hand signals or anything, and then like it would like suddenly drop into this new thing, and you'd be like, how the hell did that just happen? And it's sort of like, at that point you just start thinking, well, this is kind of like telepathic now, I suppose. I don't know. It seems like a weird thing to believe in like telepathy, but when you're playing music, you're like communicating with each other, and I feel like you can be like jamming with someone that you've never met before, and you don't really say anything to them, but you like get to know them via music, and you're having a conversation, which is this language kind of thing, but it's like a musical language, the same way that when you converse, everything that you say is based on just your knowledge of language and the words that you've heard before and the conversations that you've heard before and the knowledge that you have. But you're doing the same music, I think, and you kind of, you're saying, oh, this is something I know, and the other person's like, oh yeah, I know that too, or like
that's the magic, isn't it? When you get that like you say, almost telepathic connection, and it's like you just both, or all of you, go in that direction without, sometimes not even looking at each other, and that's a side of it again where I'm just like, where does that come from?
I had a gig once with John Kenzie. It was years ago, and it was only like a covers gig in the Picture and Piano in Didsbury, which I don't think even exists anymore. We've been doing loads and loads of gigs. We've been playing together loads. We just had this one gig where everything we were jamming just seemed like this telepathic thing, like for all the way through. And we do the same thing at the same time. And go, whoa! And it would just keep happening over and over again. And be like, whoa! What is this? What's going on?
And the people in the Picture and Piano were like, why do they keep going?
Yeah, I don't think they were even listening. They were just drinking and talking over the top of us. But yeah, it was a good gig. We always sort of talk about that. It was like, if we go back in time and watch it, we'll probably think it was really shit. But in the moment, it was good.
I think that's what it's all about, though, is finding, because you've collabed with John quite a lot, haven't you, on things, and written together, right?
Yeah, written some songs, yeah.
So it's like, I think it's all about finding those people that you have those connections with, and then, making sure that you do things with them again, and you collaborate again, and work together, because it doesn't always happen the same way. Like with a conversation, you sort of like might meet someone at a party, and it's just like really dry kind of conversation. You don't have much in common.
Be like, avoid him. Go in the other room.
yeah. I just need to go and grab something from there. Yeah, a little bit. It's kind of the problem with jam nights sometimes, isn't it? Where you kind of like, you can end up on stage with someone that you're just like basically having a conversation in front of like a full bar of people, but it's not very interesting, and you're like,
did you watch the Euros? Not really into the Euros.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing that fascinates me the most, is that magic kind of connection, because it's not even like you said, some of these people don't, and never, almost never met, and they play and they just gel. And I like how you're saying it's like a language, because like it is, isn't it? But I believe there's something more to it. I do think that there is there's another realm there, or dimension, or whatever you want to call it, that this is all coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Ben? Do you think I'm crazy?
Completely crazy. No, yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, maybe it comes from another realm. Definitely hard to explain where it comes from.
I mean, it's like we're learning about the quantum realm now, aren't we? And all these that we're starting to know that there are these other spaces that time acts differently and everything acts differently. Are either of you open to the idea like that frequencies can heal?
Oh yeah. I've never had a gong bath, but I would definitely go for one.
What happens in a gong bath? You have a bath and people hit gongs.
I don't think it's. I think the bath term is nothing to. You're not in like a bath as we know it, and there's no water involved. But I guess you're bathing in sound. I guess.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Because there's
D flat.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? That we're attuned to having everything in 440 as well, and obviously some people would argue that it should be 436, and some people argue that it should be whatever the other one is, 32.
It's changed historically, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it used to be not 440. Which is interesting. Yeah. I've got a piano that's too old and knackered. I can't tune it to 440, so it's like tuned a bit lower.
Oh really?
A bit frustrating, but yeah.
You don't like how it sounds in that?
I like how it sounds. I just don't like how I can't record it with other instruments. Like
you're not about putting all the instruments in that same tuning.
It seems a bit of a faff.
Yeah, come on.
Could do, but I don't know. If I put my keyboard on top of it, I can't tune that, can I? Or can I? I don't know.
Keyboard?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of them.
Yeah, maybe mine's. Yeah, maybe I just need a better keyboard. Or a better piano, I don't know.
I guess one thing I'll add, which is basically like paraphrasing Paul McCartney, like you said, there's things about it things about music and frequencies that we can't really explain. There's no reason. McCartney says there's no reason why a song that has no, or a composition that has no words, and it just has music and frequencies. There's no reason why you should hear it and go, "Oh, that's sad," or like, or this makes me feel amazing, or whatever it tugs on some area of the heartstrings, or particular chakra, or something in your body, or something in your experience gets like pulled on, and it makes you feel a certain way. And there's no reason why that's the case, and that's sort of like the human experience, I suppose. That's the unexplained nature of it.
There's always that. So you always hear about that. There's the note that someone plays on a string instrument. It just makes you cry. It's like you could be you could be in a good mood, and suddenly you just like that urge to hit something, and whether you could argue that maybe that's not hitting your life, maybe it's hitting a past life if you believe in past lives. Or do either of you? I don't usually ask this, but do either of you believe in aliens or UFOs?
I mean, I don't actively go looking for sort of UFO evidence or anything like that, but I'm just probably in that camp of like, there's got to be other life there out in the universe that we don't necessarily know about, or most of us don't know about. Maybe some like government official does somewhere, but there's got to be, surely.
It's a very big place, isn't it, the universe? Yeah. So you think there'd be something going on somewhere.
Three aliens doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, doing a podcast.
Yeah,
somewhere else. Yeah,
it's asking the exact same questions. Aliens.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they got music anyway.
Yeah. Imagine that if they didn't have any music and they came here and they heard music.
And they hated it.
But here's a question: is it possible to have language without music, or like to have, sort of oral as an AU? Sorry, not as an AU. Oral communication. Is it possible to like have that and also not have music? Because even within the animal kingdom, it's like
Singing to each other to communicate. Or,
yeah.
I guess birds do, don't
and
they?
Whales.
Yeah. I believe there would be. Yeah, I mean, probably our first form of communication was probably, musical in some way. I would suspect that, humans were probably in early stage before they could talk, were probably hitting stuff rhythmically,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe dancing. Maybe we communicate in dance and music.
I still communicate mainly with dance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the best form of communication, dance.
Gary Barlow didn't wash his hair for 14 years.
Really?
There's a BBC article about it.
Wow.
Was this in that downtime period between Take That and the
The
reuniting
revival.
of Take That?
Yeah.
He was like, fuck it. Fuck it, I'm not getting out of bed and I'm not washing my hair.
And then he came back with a song called Shine. Was it?
We wrote that on the morning, like he
Washed his hair for the
shampoo.
first time.
Let it shine, let it shine.
So thank you so much for both being on. It's been great to chat and jam.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.